Broadcasting live from the triome of Zagoth on the plain of Ikoria. This is Tap Tap Concede. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tap Tap Concede. I am Graham, and I'm here with people whom I will call out by name because we are not in the same room. And last time we just had an open season, it was a madhouse. James.
Yo.
Nelson.
Hi.
And Cameron.
Oh.
That was the order that you were in the list on my digital interface for recording podcasts remotely.
I'm the meat.
Between the James Cameron sandwich.
Yum.
That's where I was going, yeah.
Delicious. Yes, and welcome. So yeah, there's four of us because we figured why not. And today we're going to be talking about Ikoria because we know much more about the new setting that we're going to. They were being very cagey about this for quite a while.
The spoiler, yeah, the set was held, right? There was no big leak. So that's nice. Right?
Yeah, there was maybe a little leak kind of some of the specialty card frame stuff that we'll talk about like a couple days beforehand, but for a long time it was just sort of like Ikoria, Lair of the Behemoths. You know, like something about big monsters and evolution and something, and then there was a poster that looked very Yu-Gi-Oh, and everybody was like, "What is this? What is going on?" And now we know, and we'll talk about this in this podcast that is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Go to cardkingdom.com/LRR. No, I didn't almost forget to do that, and we send you over there because we think that Card Kingdom is great, and they continue to be great. And if when you place an order, you tell them Loading Ready Run sent me button, please, they will give you a little 1-inch button that currently still says sideboarding is an admission of defeat. I don't actually know what status their shipping department is in at the moment.
They're completely shut down right now.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
The entirety of Washington State is more or less
under a stay-at-home order, yeah,
yeah,
which is why Loading Ready Run merch is also not shipping at the moment.
But Correct. You know what? As soon as Card Kingdom can ship you cards, they're going to do it faster than basically every other card shop. So watch out for that.
Indeed. And also, everything is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. So thank you for that. No Crack-A-Pack again this week because I still forgot to bring more home from the moon base, but I'm going in tomorrow, so I'll try to remember. But instead, we're going to jump right into talking about some spoilers for Ikoria. So you're hearing this, or at least this is going up on Monday. So we've had a whole weekend of all the stuff from the Commander set, which is the Ikoria Commander specific. It's Commander 20, but it's all based in Ikoria, which is super cool. And we'll talk about all that in another episode next week. But for this episode, we're just going to talk about Ikoria in general. What a cool looking plane.
Yeah, it looks like, if I'm parsing the trailer correctly, it has just like huge fortified human cities in this wilderness of giant monsters.
Yeah, a lot of the this is not really a direct comparison, but a lot of the concept art. There was a big article on the Wizards website, the Planeswalker's Guide to Ikoria, and it talked about all the different sort of the setting and the layout and the people that live there. And a lot of the concept art reminded me of Dinotopia.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, because Dinotopia is written as like a diary, so there's a lot of like sort of diagrammatic artwork in it that's sort of like, this is the way that things are. So that's why the world guide and the concept art reminded me so much of it, because it sort of makes it look like it's sort of a diary written by someone. But so, you know, it's not really that same sort of thing, but I was like, oh, this is cool. This is people living in not harmony, but they're, you know, people coexisting with giant beasts in a really interesting way.
It seems like they're surviving on this plane that's dominated and ruled by these giant beasts, like, despite that. So kudos to the humans. That's my impression anyway. Is it like, if you end up in the path of one of these beasts at any point, like, you are done. But your species somehow has managed to, like, establish these bastions and, like, mitigate the, you know, destruction of all human life, you know, by teamwork. Mm-hmm. Which is, you know, an important part of our heritage, right? In the real world.
I mean, I guess I guess I'm kind of curious to find out if we're gonna find out if it's always been like this, or like is the plan that we get that they're starting to kind of realize the whole lore thing was a big mess up, and they're going to try to tell us more. Like they've already kind of started to do that with this, haven't they?
Yes, they have said that there will actually be there will be a book for this one as
Yeah.
well.
So I guess I'm curious to see if this is like if this is how this world has always been, or if it's it's one of those like monster movie things where the humans woke all these monsters up and now they have to deal with them, or maybe the humans came here and pissed off all the monsters. Who knows? I'm curious. I want to know more.
I
I would
think from go ahead.
Oh,
Cameron.
I was just now I'm completely obsessed with the Dinotopia idea. I would love it if the art book was like one of those books where, shipwrecked human explorer and celebrated scholar washes up on the shores of Ikoria and writes about my travels among the humans and the beasts of the land of Ikoria.
Yeah, because there's these in the same way that in Dinotopia that his son becomes a Skybax rider. I'm just going deep on this now. That there's people. So there's beasts and humans, and then but some of the humans are bonders. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That sounds right.
Yeah, wild bonders. There we are. Who basically form a lifetime bond with one of the beasts, and then they grow up together basically and become this like 1-2 punch of like one of the yeah. It's sorry. Here's one of the spoiler cards. It's called Fully Grown. 2 and a green instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Put a trample counter on it, and then the flavor text is, one day I woke up and knew I had nothing left to teach her. So now I ride on her shoulders and follow her where she leads. Attributed to Gustin, Wild Bonder. And there's this dude riding on like the horn of this enormous creature.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, it looks like it's a big cow of some kind.
Big angry cow, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So yeah, it's the flavor of this world is really, really interesting. I like it a lot. And then I guess the other thing sort of related to that, with this world of giant beasts, is that they have some very interesting promo cards.
Yep.
Did you know that Hasbro actually has the Godzilla license?
I did not know until earlier last week.
So I was wondering if they just already had it or if they went out of their way to get it.
I don't know. I think that Hasbro actually got the Godzilla license some time ago. I mean, I guess they would have had to do it sometime before this, but yeah, there's these amazing alt art promos, the that are kaiju alternate art, and so a bunch of the legendary creature. Actually, they aren't even all legendary. Some of the creatures in the set have alternate art versions where they are creatures from the Godzilla kaiju big man in rubber monster suit movies. And so and they're like, the art is of the monster from the movies and the name of the card is the monster. Like there's one that's Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and then in small text underneath is the name of the actual magic card that it actually is, but they're just being presented like it's Godzilla or Mothra or Ghidorah or what was Destoroyah.
Yep.
Destoroyah, Rodan.
Dorat, which I learned is like, sorry, I can't even remember. I my producer fed all this information to me the last time I was casting for Channel Fireball because we wanted to talk about this card. It had been recently spoiled, and they're like some kind of weird little, monkey like fairy things they came out of the same lab as Godzilla or something in one of the stories, but they're
Weird.
like not nearly as scary and they're kind of cute. But this is the alternate sprite dragon.
Yeah. So they're kind of cool. Like it's obvious when you look at like Mothra and you look at what the actual magic card is. which I'll talk about in a second. It's obvious that these were sort of to some extent reverse engineered. Hey, wouldn't it
Top
be
down.
cool?
Yeah.
Well, I assumed that they were working on a set with big monsters and they designed maybe some of them, and then there was this idea. It'd be like, holy crap! You know what we should do is make kaiju versions of it, and then sort of we're like, oh well, if we're gonna do that, we'll need like all of the we need to hit all of these beats. Okay, well, we had some of them done, they sort of slot into these places, but now we got to have a Mothra, so let's make a moth creature. So I noticed that while we haven't seen a kaiju version of them, there are two there's two legendary creatures, Kolgla the Titan Ape and Yidaro Wandering Monster, who is a dinosaur turtle, who are definitely King Kong and Gamera, but those are not under the Godzilla. Those are not Godzilla properties, so I assume they're not going to have an actual kaiju release.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Happy shift change to everybody, by the way. At time of recording, it's 7 p.m. I don't know if my mic's picking it up, but I'm sure we're all hearing it.
Yeah, there's some outside my place as well.
Thank you all for your service, nurses and doctors and frontline people who are listening to our podcast about Magic cards.
Yeah.
But these kaiju cards. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think they look super cool, and I mean, some people have responded very negatively to them, but
sorry, I gotta stop you right there, Graham. People are being negative about Magic the Gathering.
Okay, I know it's weird. I know this sounds weird, but you have to come with me on this journey.
Okay,
there are some people who don't. Oh God, there goes the pots now.
There we go.
Who don't like that Magic cards can have totally optional alternate art things that are just fun.
Like who wakes up in the morning and sees Godzilla on a Magic card
and doesn't think it's the sickest crap ever?
It doesn't go, God, yes, this is sweet. And not only Godzilla, but Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Godzilla Primeval Champion, Godzilla Doom Inevitable. There's so many Godzillas. There's Space Godzilla and Cyber Godzilla, and it's so cool, and I don't understand.
I can try to explain it if you want.
No.
Okay.
No, you don't want to understand. That's fine. That's fine too.
No, fine. Explain it.
All right. So, is Godzilla particularly cool? Like, is it a good movie or like a good franchise? Is there some value behind Godzilla?
Yes. 100%. Yes.
Okay. In the relative values in your heart and mind, which is more valuable, the lore of Magic the Gathering or the lore of Godzilla?
Well, so for me in my everyday life, I'm more invested in the lore of Magic the Gathering, but this doesn't interfere. This is, this sort of ties in with the same. I mean, these are the same people who argue that whenever a movie gets remade of their favorite childhood movie, that it's ruined that movie. And it's just like, well, no, it hasn't. It's still there. You can still enjoy it. And this seems very similar. It's like, I would see it being a fair thing to be kind of upset with if this set, Ikoria, was literally actually just a lie the whole time, and it was kaiju the set, right? And it was actually Godzilla in the world.
And it was all
Gathering,
and it was all licensed, and it was all
and it's just like, no, this is actually you're going to play Godzilla in standard.
Yeah, Jace is actually going to meet literal Godzilla.
Yeah, that would be stupid. And I actually would think I think they asked this question in a survey last year talking about these kinds of tie-ins with Magic. And generally people at the time, because I think this was before they started really diving into this alt art stuff and these fun promos, people were dead set against the idea of, other franchises coming into Magic. But they've actually, in my opinion at least, found a really fun and interesting way to do it while still leaving Magic the Gathering, the brand, to sort of exist in its own thing. And then for people who want to, bring Godzilla, King of the Monsters, to their Friday Night Magic, they can do that, right? I think that's cool.
Yeah, I guess it's like there are a lot of, different sets of intellectual property that people care about. Godzilla is a cool one. Like, it's certainly some iconic stuff. It's an important part of, the history of fantasy or whatever. It's a very recognizable name. I just think it's not probably I don't even know if it's in the top 10 of like interesting franchises that would be like any Magic player's dream to see kind of come alive on their cards. But it's always cool if people get to play with like alternate art versions of their cards. Like, I'm a big fan of card alters, and I just feel like this is maybe, I don't know, it's a nod, or it's like it's a powerful use of the printing engine, like the creation of Magic cards, to say like, hey, it's us, Wizards of the Coast. We want to get into the altered art game. So here's your awesome, Godzilla cards for everyone who cares about that. Tune in next week for your Wolverine Jace, right?
Sure.
So
I mean, I guess
if people like it, that's great.
Yeah, I guess one thing that, it becomes sort of this slippery slope is I don't for a second believe that they started to design Ikoria with the idea that they were going to get to do this kaiju tie-in, right? Like,
yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think
I'm
that was
so
the
curious
case.
how it worked. Yeah, I'm very curious how the conversations worked and who gave access to what when. Yeah.
But I guess the thing that you do have to kind of be cautious about is getting into a situation where now you are actively designing Magic the Gathering sets to work specifically with these other IP tie-ins that you really want to do because you think it's going to sell cards, right? Like,
Right.
They tried to design a Doctor Who themed Magic set because now they can print a Dalek card, right? That's where I feel like that could start getting kind of sketchy.
Yeah, like, and I mean, one thing here is that, like, in Eldraine we had like Robin Hood,
Yeah.
right, as a barely concealed, folklore nod. But we're also kind of ignoring the fact that this is based on fantasy literature that is, I mean, orcs, elves, dwarves, these are all very like Tolkien uh, rooted things, at least when they started out, right? Like, this was
Fair.
like the serial numbers are barely filed off on a lot of Magic cards,
Right.
right? Like, and that being said, like, having literal Godzilla, that's a bit different. But honestly, like, it's just a bit of an extrapolation on the line from where we've been headed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I guess it's like, so the card art for the King of the Monsters, it's not even like Godzilla in the Magic multiverse though, right? It's Godzilla in Tokyo. Like, he's blowing up a building that is from Earth. So it's like, it does real, and like it gives the name. So I guess for me that just like, there's an additional break there. Whereas instead of like the idea of Godzilla being presented, you have actual Godzilla, like, buy this Magic card pack, there is potentially a Godzilla toy inside. You have to eat all the cereal, but then you send away like 10 coupons and you get Godzilla. Like, that's just what it feels like to me.
So I assume that these are all this is what's in the collectible packs. Like,
sorry,
that's how this
I
works?
don't know either. Good guess. I've just seen previews. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we
Seems
don't
likely.
know, but from like the collector boosters, probably.
I assume this is where these live. So,
Yeah, because some of them are mythic, some of them are rare, some of them are uncommon.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're all the way down. So there's an uncommon here actually, or there's a common here.
Oh, cool.
Mysterious egg is all the way down to common.
So should we talk about some of these actual cards? I guess, or actually, no. Before even that, we should talk about some of the mechanics.
Yeah, I have stuff that I'd love to talk about with these mechanics because there's two big new mechanics.
Yeah,
and one returning mechanic.
What's returning?
So returning is cycling.
If I was in R&D, cycling would be evergreen. That's
It's
just
pretty
my
close at
MO.
this point. It's only barely rotated out of standard, and it was in the middle there. Like, it's been printed several times. It's close to evergreen.
Yeah.
So a lot of R&D, I think Cameron agrees with you.
Cycling is basically, it's pretty simple. Example here being Void Beckoner, 6 black for an 8/8 death touch, which is kind of amazing. But it has cycling for 2 and a black, and if you do that, you can discard this card to draw a card. And it says whenever you cycle it, put a death touch counter on target creature you control. So that's how cycling works. That actually takes us to another kind of mechanic, ability counters.
Yeah.
Right.
These are interesting. So there's 12 of them?
I thought it was 11.
Is it 11?
Okay, maybe it's 12.
I think it's 11. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it basically...
You need a D12 to randomly figure out Crystalline Golem, right?
You have... Yeah, so the way that these work is you have cards that will give a creature a flying counter, a trample counter, a death touch counter, a hexproof counter, and as you may intuit, that just gives that creature that ability.
So Crystalline Giant, as Nelson just mentioned, 3 colorless artifact creature giant for a 3/3, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose a kind of counter at random. And then it doesn't, or that Crystalline Giant doesn't have on it from among Flying, First Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, Vigilance, and a +1/+1 counter. And then put a counter of that kind on Crystalline Giant. That's a lot.
So this is kind of the poster boy for this mechanic right now. And I don't know, the comment I made earlier on someone else's thread that was kind of complaining about this is just like, Arena, no problem. Works great. Love it. Paper, this is a powerful card to draft with, like, and who knows, maybe even constructed, but like as soon as you cast it, now you have a bunch of work. Like, you almost hope that your opponent chooses to kill it on your own turn before you have to start figuring out your method for putting random counters on it.
They do have, they spoiled that there will be actual printed counters that you can like punch out of little bits of cardboard.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to have actual counters, but yeah, this is going to be weird.
So let's talk about the other 2 mechanics real quick. So there's Companion, which is it's attached to certain cards. So let's go with Lurti, the Spell Chaser, adorable otter, already banned in Commander, so that's neat.
Let's talk about that in a second. Yep.
We can save that for next week.
Okay.
One blue-red one colorless hybrid of Izzet.
3 mana.
3 mana for a 3/2 legendary creature, elemental otter. Companion. Each non-land card in your starting deck has a different name. If this card is in your chosen, if this card is your chosen companion, you may cast it once from outside the game. It has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, you may choose new targets for the copy. This is a heck of a mechanic.
So the text line there. So companion is the reminder, and the text line is the criteria. Because there's another one, companion. Each non-land card in your starting deck shares a card type, or your starting deck contains only cards with even converted mana costs. So it's like, if you have your deck satisfy this requirement, then this creature can be a companion, and you can cast it from outside your deck.
Yeah. So it lives in your the mechanic for the game is it actually just lives in your sideboard. That's where it exists. So it feels like they did their best to bring Commander into standard and a draft format. Now I'm infinitely curious to see how these things play out in limited, because I'm going to guess probably not super often. But certainly in standard, it could be kind of interesting. But you can also just play these creatures as a normal creature. You can basically just ignore the companion the first paragraph of companion and just play this as a 3/2 for flash or 3/2 flash for 3 with its ability.
Yeah, like I think I'm okay playing a fork for the that comes with a 3/2 body to get a second, I don't know, shock equivalent instant
Sure.
in draft, right?
Hey, Nelson, I have a question.
Go ahead.
In draft, your sideboard is not open information, correct?
Correct.
So if you have, in this specific example, Lutri, and you have each non-land card in your deck having a different name, which seems likely in draft, you just know that you're always going to be able to have Lutri on turn 3, and your opponent's not going to know because it's just hiding in your sideboard.
I think that's what they had in mind, yeah, when they made the mechanic.
No.
Cool.
No?
No.
There's a note about it? Okay.
I was under the impression that you have to reveal your companion at the start of each game.
Okay, I have not read that note yet. It's possible that you've seen a document I haven't, or just read an article better than I did. So that's entirely possible. Even if that were the stipulation, I still want to give the nod to Lutri and some of the others as being pretty powerful draft cards. Like, even if your opponent knows that there's a 3/2 flash that you have, it's still the 8th card in your hand.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Just before the game begins, reveal your chosen companion to all players.
Yeah.
Once during the game, you may cast it. You may cast your chosen companion singular from the sideboard.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So you can't surprise your opponent with it.
Okay.
So it's very similar to Commander in that sense. You at the beginning of the game, everybody sort of says who their commander is. So it definitely kind of has that feeling to it.
Yeah. It's funny that there's going to be a cycle of 10 companions, and it's interesting that Lutri is the one that that the Commander Rules Committee banned immediately because it's the criteria is just have a commander deck.
Yeah.
So I understand, but again, we'll talk about Commander again more next week. What's our last Ikoria mechanic?
So the last mechanic is Mutate, and Mutate reads, if you cast this spell for its Mutate cost, put it over or under target non-human creature you own. They mutate into the creature on top, plus all abilities from under it. So the one that I am looking at right now is Spandex, which is not what it's called, but I'm going to call it Spandex. Apex of the Hunt. Actually, Snapdax, but we're going to call him Spandex. And so he is a 1 red, white, black legendary creature dinosaur cat nightmare, which is the mouthful. 3/5 double strike. Whenever this creature mutates, it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and you gain 4 life. And its mutate cost is 2 black-red hybrid, white-white.
Petition to change his name to Snack Dabs.
Snack Dabs. Wow.
Anyways,
so it sounds weird hearing it read, and even when I read the card the first time, I didn't actually understand it. And then there's a video that Wizards put out where they visualize it, and then it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And what they mean is that so the Mutate card has its rules box in half. Part of it has the Mutate ability, and then the actual rules text for the card. And so if you put it under a card, you obscure all of the Mutate card except for that part of the rules box, and then the entire card has its initial rule box and these new rules that are now visible, and the now visible power and toughness. But if you put it on top, you use the Mutate card to obscure the art and the name and the type line of the card you're putting it on top of, so that now you have this card and the rules box underneath. It's still, I know that it still isn't going to make sense just hearing me explain it, but if you see it once, you're like, oh, I instantly understand this.
Yeah, like it seems like one of those things where you go cross-eyed trying to visualize it, and then, yeah, as you say, as soon as you're shown it, it's much easier to explain intuitively than it is to try to explain it in a rules document.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely feels like where they landed on Augment in Black Border. it's not quite as clean, and there's a good reason for that, because Augment can exist within its own little bubble of the unsets, whereas you could put old spandex here on any non-human creature in the history of Magic, right? So
Yeah.
that just wasn't going to work. But I think it's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, Mutate really seems like one of those cards that will be explained with a yes, it works how you think it does.
Yeah, speaking of which, it also, I immediately thought of working the way you think it does in relation to Bestow, which is if you try to cast one of these cards for its mutate ability, and you're like, I'm going to mutate this card onto that card on my battlefield, and that card gets removed, then the mutate card just goes plonk onto the battlefield as its own creature.
Worth noting, though, if it doesn't get removed in response and the mutate does resolve, like the casting of the mutate creature works, I believe if after that, so you mutate and then you probably get a trigger. I think they all give you a trigger for mutating.
Yeah.
And then, either when that triggers on the stack or after the triggers resolved, just later in the game, when you kill the creature, it's just like the whole thing goes to the graveyard, like both cards, I believe.
Yeah, once the mutation has happened successfully, it is now one great new beast.
And that part is different than Bestow. Bestow was like very interested in trying to provide an aura for players that like was going to always get them some extra creature. Like if you, because that aura just sticks around after the first creature dies.
Yeah. And so even outside of that, this isn't a mechanic, but even outside of Mutate, there are some creatures on this plane that just have absolutely weird type lines. Right?
Such as?
Well, I mean, we talked about...
We talked about one, yeah.
We talked about Dinosaur Turtle. There's a... let me see. So Elemental Bird. Sure, that's fairly straightforward. Nightmare Pangolin.
Nice.
Dinosaur Hippo. Nightmare Dinosaur.
Shark
Elemental Otter. Shark Beast. Horror Infernal. Infernal? That's not in English. New. Hellion. That's it. Hellion Horror.
All right.
So Hellion Horror. Fairy Dragon.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of really interesting stuff.
We got Shark Beast.
There's a Simic Biomagos somewhere looking at these cards going, not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, the Simic clan is definitely down with this plane, right?
I think there could be like 5% more frog in here, but not bad. Who designed these? who, I would like to meet this person and share. No one designed these. Really?
They were just here.
And also, I guess, interesting from a not explicit mechanic, but from a way that this set will function mechanically. As I mentioned at the top of the show, broadcasting from one of the triomes of the plane of Ikoria, and there are 5 triomes of Ikoria, and which are groupings of 3 colors of mana. They are Mardu, Sultai,
Jeskai,
Jeskai, and Temur. So they're the same as some of the Khans clans, but in here they're called triomes, and they each have a massive champion beast, and they sort of have themes that run through them. And so this is definitely a set where cycling is useful to make sure that you can splash across and hit all your mana.
Yeah. So I mean, the one thing that I wanted to talk about with these mechanics is there's definitely been a good amount of discussion online over the last couple of days about the complexity of the set. And I don't think it's unfair to say that it is definitely a more complex set. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But the thing that struck me the most when I saw Mutate and Companion and certainly the ability counters is these feel like they're really properly pushing these mechanics in paper, whereas in Arena, these are all going to be really easy, right? Like Mutate in paper, I think of all of them, Mutate is the easiest, most straightforward one to grasp in paper. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's actually going to be that many problems with it once you actually start doing it. Mm-hmm. Companion's interesting because it's deck building restrictions, which means in Arena, you just can't. If you want to run it as a companion, the program literally won't let you do it unless you meet those restrictions. That's not going to be the case in paper. Mistakes can happen, whether it's people doing it on purpose and cheating, or just because they made a mistake, which people tend to do. I think that's definitely a mechanic that maybe was designed with Arena in mind, but knowing that it could work in paper. And I think that's the same for the counters. In Arena, dead simple. In paper, it could become an accounting nightmare. It could become, administrative work to make sure that whatever that artifact was called, I can't remember, the crystalline giant is, up to snuff, because it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose a kind of target at random, or kind of counter at random that it doesn't have, right? So the first,
also, like,
I was going to say, the first time you roll and you get flying, and then that means the next turn you have to ignore flying, and now you have to remove that from the equation. And I could just, see that becoming a bit of a mess. But
well, also you look at the companions, and so say you're sitting down at well, I guess not the pre-release, but say you're playing in paper, and your opponent is like, okay, by the way, I have this companion, Gyruda, Doom of Depths, which, by the way, if you're interested, is 4 Dimir for a 6/6 legendary demon kraken. And it enters the battlefield. Each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under your control. Sick. Good card. Its companion criteria is that your starting deck contains only cards with even converted mana costs. So your opponent sits down and they say, this is my companion. Now you got to check that they don't cast something with an odd converted mana cost, which they may have included, but completely by accident.
Yeah.
And it's, not paying attention. And it's just like, what happened? Then you have to be like, well, judge, I guess my opponent can't, like, I don't even know what happens there, right? Is that like, is it just like, well, I guess you can't cast Garuda, or is it like, oh, well, failure to maintain whatever, and you get like a warning or something?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I can tell you if you want, it's going to depend on how fast we notice that there was an odd card in the Garuda deck. And then it's like, every judge call should sort of be treated as an investigation. If you do, like, even at, a casual draft, like, if you think that the player's cheating on purpose, yeah, you want to take a different path through this call where you just eject that player, even if it's not for much prizes. But otherwise, yeah, if it's basically been like a whole turn, like, I think there's plenty of judges that would argue, like, as soon as the trigger is resolved, like, this trigger manipulates the libraries and makes objects change zones. So there's plenty of judges just be like, well, did the trigger resolve? Okay, keep playing, assuming you've also determined it was an honest mistake.
Yeah. So it just, that seems challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that I do want to say that I don't think it's bad. I think that it's good that we live in a world now where things are going to start getting pushed for the sake of a better experience online. The fact is that the future of this game very much relies on Magic the Gathering Arena, and they have to find a way to balance both Arena and paper, and that's not something I envy them for. It's not something that any other card game really has to worry about, certainly at this size, right? Hearthstone does not have this problem. All the other CCGs that have come out in the last few years, they don't need to worry about this. But this is something that Magic is going to have to, worry about for the foreseeable future. And I'm glad that they are, they're trying new things, and sometimes it's not going to work. And I don't know if any of these are necessarily that, but I'm excited to find out.
I think they're in a good position to have to do this because they have already, like, for many years been designing Magic cards to go into all of the different formats, right? Like, already Magic is many games for many people. So hopefully that'll help as we enter into the era of Magic is also, Magic Arena. And I mean, it's been Magic Online for a long time, but for whatever reason, Arena is like a slightly different thing. I mean, just the popularity of it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I always come down on the side of, be weird,
Sure.
make it
Oh, yeah.
weird, try things out, and like, the Magic development has had its hit or misses, but generally speaking, I kind of trust them.
Yeah, I also want to hold out judgment on the mutate and companion mechanics as to whether or not they are strictly, too complicated or too weird to handle in paper. I agree, like we said earlier, that mutate seems very hard to wrap your head around, and then once you've done it, it will hopefully just make sense, and there will be not that many difficult judge calls to handle with it. Although I guess who knows when we're even going to get a chance to play these cards together.
Yeah. I mean, when I was reading it, I was like, I don't understand what put it over or under a non-human creature. I don't understand what that means.
I mean,
and then I watched the Wizard's video and I was like, oh, like physically, like you obscure I get it. And it was like, oh, okay, cool. Sure.
I mean, maybe this is just the best set ever to have happened at this time, right? Where it's just like everyone has to go to Arena to play these cards the first time. Arena is just going to show us what it's supposed to look like so that we don't even need to ask those initial questions of like, hey, Judge, what does this do? I read it, but I don't get it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's maybe lucky.
I'm going to mention it just because I said earlier, I was like, oh, we'll talk about this later. And then we haven't so far.
Here
So the Mothra card, which is Luminous Brood Moth, is 2 white for a 3/4 flying insect. Whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. Holy crap.
Pretty cool card.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is wild. Also, yes, we know there's a Sharknado. There's literally, they called it a shark typhoon, and even though it's a water spout, and it's it's 5 and a blue for an enchantment. Okay, listen to this. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. It also has cycling for X1 blue, so you can discard it and draw a card. And then when you cycle it, you make an XX blue shark creature token with flying. This is where I was like, I tweeted, I was like, this is not a criticism, but is this just a black bordered unset? Like the mutate mechanic is host augment made in a way that works, I guess, in black border Magic.
Yep.
And it's just the tone of like the weird creature names, like Pouncing Shore Shark, which is the shark beast with flash, and then the fact that there's actual Sharknado in here, and the mutate stuff. It's like, this feels very like an unset. That for me, that is not a criticism. I know some people responded to my tweet being like, I don't like it, and it's like, cool, you can not like it, but I'm just so you know, I'm like, I'm here for it, but it seems very strange.
Yeah, I mean, James, we were sort of on opposite sides of this Godzilla thing earlier. So how do you feel about like Kogla the Titan Ape and Shark Typhoon as just like these very obvious King Kong and Sharknado cards? Like, are you into it? Does it make you more excited to play with this set or less?
So I'm the kind of
Magic. These are the black bordered printed cards. Yeah.
I mean, so I guess I kind of generally fall under the Magic player subtype of I don't care about the lore. I rarely pay attention to the flavor text. The art is there and it's present, and this is something that I always find really interesting when we get to record Tap Tap in person at the office. When we have the cards up on the big screen, you're all of a sudden like, oh, hey, I didn't know that was in the art. That's neat. So as long as the cards do cool things, then I don't generally care very much. And I think that's why I am super okay with the idea of this basically just being Kaiju the set. If it was literally Kaiju the set, I would probably that would have taken me aback a little bit. I would have been like, well, this is maybe a little too much. But this is the perfect amount for me. I mean, again, I see Luminous Broodmouth, and all I see is a rad white creature, right?
Yeah, it looks very powerful.
I don't see Mothra. I just see a rad creature. Shark Typhoon, I see an enchantment that actually looks kind of cool.
No, if we're gonna turn into the like cold, ruthless, like constructed player here or whatever, or pro player, I actually think Shark Typhoon is playable, like in something or other. It smacks of like, you know, an intersection between Decree of Justice and whatever that enchantment was that made Drakes that was like kind of playable. But this one's like, it can make really big creatures. It makes flyers. You can cycle it.
What was the one that made Cam? Was it Metallurgic Summonings?
Yeah, I want to say there was something very similar to Shark Typhoon a couple of sets ago, and that sounds right. Yeah, Metallurgic Summonings. It had Tezzeret, right?
Yeah, I think it was in Kaladesh, and it made like XX. Some sort of horrible looking
three blue enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create an XX colorless construct artifact creature token where X is that spell's CMC.
Yeah. All right.
So I mean,
and that was a mythic.
I don't know why we can't get the like because we've never had alternate named cards before. That's like a new thing they gave us with these Godzilla cards, right? So like it deserves to have the just Sharknado alternate name like promo printing, right?
No, that would require a whole other license though.
Right. Whereas the Godzilla license they just had lying around.
Yeah, they had that one.
Similarly, you know, just 2 slots over on the Mythic spoiler here, we could get an alternate, you know, Tiger King, like Joe Exotic Planeswalker for Luca Coppercoat Outcast, who's
god,
3 red for a Planeswalker, and the art is just like of a giant cat next to this man who's holding the cat. So there's a maybe, I don't even know if that nod was on purpose. This card would have been designed 2 years ago or whatever, and Tiger King just came out.
Almost assuredly not.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with no.
But an interesting coincidence, and could be another like movie title card that comes out.
Cheville, Bane of Monsters, definitely looks like Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. Anyway,
I have to trust you for what Jake the Snake looks like. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it looked like oh god, who's the guy in Predator?
Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, okay. With the little mustache.
Jesse the Body Ventura.
Yeah.
No. Also, you're right. Maybe wrestlers look similar.
I mean, they're very square men, right? Or at least they trend towards being like very like either traffic cone shaped or like square. I found. Yeah. I'm just kind of excited about the mythos of Snapdax, the mythos of snack packs, the mythos of snack packs.
Spandex. Spandex.
These mythos cards are beautiful too, by the way. All Seb McKinnon art to look like cave drawings or cave paintings.
Anyway, mythos of snack packs is balance, kind of.
Okay, so 2 generic white for a sorcery. So double the mana cost of balance. Each player chooses an artifact, creature, enchantment, and planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control, then sacrifices the rest. But, and this is actually a sort of sub-mechanic that we haven't talked about yet, because these mythoses have an enhanced spell mechanic, just like from Ravnica, City of Guilds. If black-red was spent to cast this spell, so that means if you cast this spell paying exactly white, black, red for all 4 pips instead of paying white, and anything else, you choose the permanents for each player instead. So that's a really powerful Mardu spell. Now, none of these mythoses are easy to cast when you fill them out. They all ask for 2 pips of one color and 1 each of the other ones, except for the black one we've seen is just 1 of each Obzon pip. But if you pay black, red, white, then you choose the artifact you keep and the artifact your opponent keeps, the creature you keep and the creature your opponent keeps, and so on. So yeah, that'll win some games. Definitely.
I mean, I kind of want to sleeve that up for my Aristocrats deck because it's cute, right? I'm into paying 1 more white mana than Crackling Doom to play around.
Sure. I mean, and this
Um,
is and this like plague wins your opponent unless they have exactly one creature that's holding the fort for them. So
yeah, like I mean, I still lose to a transform thing in the ice, but that's life. Um,
yeah,
and then I'm also excited for Bastion of Remembrance. Keep printing me blood artists. Keep printing me weird blood artists, especially ones that sneak past Essence Scatter.
hmm. So this is 3 mana, 2 generic, and a black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier. And whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So yeah, pretty decent. You got
Hmm.
it's 1 more mana than your blood artist, but it sticks around and it gives you the body. I like this card a lot.
Lives through
Yeah, like
wrath.
I mean, these all the blood artists have like ups and downs, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
Silverport Cutthroat can technically swing in, right?
right, right.
You can feed most of your blood artists to a sack outlet for final points of damage, but this one survives wraths, so that's also nice.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we yeah, it's hard for me to parse whether the third mana is more or less important than this powerful clause of being an enchantment instead of being a creature. Your creatures do tend to get killed when you're playing aristocrats. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, especially considering how highly people prioritize your blood artists,
Right.
right? Like blood artists are like top tier kills. So
Yeah.
one that can't be doombladed is nice. Well, I mean, you can't doomblade blood artists, but you know what I'm getting at. One that can't be bolted.
Yes.
Before we get too deep on going through card by card, which we definitely could because there's a lot of really cool stuff, and we'll be talking about even more stuff next episode when we delve into the commander cards, because these were just the ones that are actually in Ikoria. James, did you want to talk a bit about what we're doing for what was to be the Ikoria pre-release?
Yeah, so obviously, in a perfect world, this Friday would have been the PPR, and for very obvious reasons, we will not be able to do that, which is unfortunate. But we are finding a workaround. So I still don't, unfortunately, have 100% confirmed details, even though this is going up tomorrow. I hope to finalize everything tomorrow. So hopefully by Tuesday or Wednesday, we will have a proper announcement for you. But the TLDR, without giving too much away, is on April 18th, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific over on twitch.tv/Loading Ready Run. You can join Loading Ready Run, including Graham, Kathleen, Cameron, Adam, Ben, and Serge, playing all day long on Magic Arena with a whole bunch of our Magic the Gathering content creator friends, people that you know and love, people that have been to these things before, people that I know that you will be excited to see. As again, I'm finalizing everybody like tomorrow, so we'll have the full guest list as soon as possible. But the idea is basically 2-hour shifts. Graham is going to kick us off at 9 a.m. He'll be joined by 2 guests via the wonders of internet communication. They'll play some Ikoria on Arena, and then Graham will tag out, and Adam will come in, and then Ben will come in, and then Cameron will come in, and we're going to do that all day for 12 hours. It is the Ikoria post pre-release, because of course the streamer event is actually happening on the 15th, which we will be a part of as usual. And then it's just playable for everybody on the 16th. So this is not going to be your regular sneak peek at the cards, first chance to see how they play together. You're going to be able to play right alongside with us on the Saturday. But I think it's still just going to be a really fun day of friends hanging out and playing Magic together for a whole heck of a long time. So again, hopefully within the next day or two, we will have a proper announcement come out with the guest lineup and the schedule and all that information. But for now, that's our plan.
Awesome. And that is going to be our episode. That was a lot of fun, and I'm now very, very, very excited to start playing these cards. So a reminder that this show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Do check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. And it is always and continues to be brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Until next time, I have been Graham. That has been James.
Bye.
And Nelson.
Thank you.
And Cameron. And we'll talk to you next time on Tap Tap Concede.